Hi all, this is the fourth time I've begun this video. Usually when I do videos for you all, although rarely will I share this, it's 8-9 takes before I get it good enough from my perspective from beginning to end. I don't like to start over. I like it to be one fluid piece. And that's this part of me that sort of wants things to be perfect. And I know at some level that you all couldn't care less. You just want to get the information, and you probably wouldn't want me belaboring it, but I tend to do that. And so here in the spirit of creativity, because this week is mindfulness and creativity, which is to be open to explore and to make mistakes and to not get it quite right and to learn as you go, I'm going to do my best. We'll see. I really have no idea if I'm going to get away with this, of going through this in one take without getting up and pushing the button and starting this over. It's a commitment to myself. We'll see how it goes. I might splice out some things along the way just to keep this tight for you all, but also it will be a little bit more of a ramble, I suppose. And that's in the spirit of creativity. All right, so this week is mindfulness and creativity, and you'll see that because Friday is the well-being day, and I'm hoping that you bring a little bit of your own creative spirit more fully into this week, and perhaps have Friday be a day where you immerse in it more than you normally would. There's not really any readings for you this week. You'll find that there's a very short reading, a page or a page and a half on mindfulness and creativity as it relates to the open monitoring practice, which is a new practice we're learning for this week. And there's a very short piece that's, I think, interesting on haiku, because we're going to have an assignment that you will do where you'll write 3 haiku. That's a grand total of 17 words, roughly 17 words and 17 words, 51 words, 9 lines. That's the full extent of your writing assignment for this week. And as it relates to the observations of the open monitoring practice, you don't need to do it for me. You're not going to turn it in. But if you want to keep track for yourself, because you're noting your observations along the way as you're learning different mindfulness practices, please do so. This is meant not to be a going through your assignments, although I will touch on them to breathe a little bit more life than what might be on the Blackboard module page. But I have on that page the specifics so that you can make sure you get those specifics in that more reviewable form. So, creativity. The law is fundamentally a very creative process. Perhaps you know this. The mere fact that the legal system emerged from a state of chaos, a state of nature, speaks to its creative form, and that creative form tends to be in the many environments in which we see creativity emerging, an expansion and a narrowing and an expansion and a narrowing and expansion and a narrowing. And we see this in terms of the evolution of our species. We see this in terms of the evolution of the law. And we know that the law evolves because of the creative spirit of lawyers and of litigants and of judges and of just the way we figure out and find our way. And we can take time ourselves, as you all have at different times in your life, and perhaps some of you robustly to this day, but I suspect many of you not so much, to find time to cultivate and immerse in and nurture our creative hearts, our creative souls. And so I want to take you through just a little bit of an exploration of some things that I've put together to share with you about my relationship to creativity, in the hopes that it might touch something in you that motivates you, or offers you just a shared sense of my experience in the ways that that might be of interest or useful to you. You know, I began this video, I think, or maybe that was an earlier version, flipping through some of these. When I was younger, I used to collect comic books, and then they got put away. And, you know, it's like a child's thing, but I had so much fun with the Archies, and this is the first this is the first Spider-Man ever, Amazing Fantasy 15. I remember how excited I was when I got this. And this is the very first Iron Man. Tales of Suspense 39. And this is Lorna the Jungle Girl, from way back, even before, and the first Daredevil. And I loved collecting comic books. I loved reading them, just the art, the storyline, that way of expressing stories and narrative and reading it. I really enjoyed it. It's nice every now and again for me to sort of flip through and go through memory lane in a way. What was also interesting was when my wife Pam and I met each other, there was a hurricane coming, and she had a bunch of her stuff in storage at her grandmother's, and so we went to move it, and I saw that we both had Richie Rich comics, that we both had been collecting Richie Rich comics when we were kids and reading them. She wasn't collecting them, actually. She was reading them, but she hung on to them for some reason, and we in fact had some of the exact same comic books, which is neat to think that we were both sort of reading them, as 8-year-olds or 10-year-olds or 12-year-olds, just at the same time. Music. You're going to have one of the videos be a video of Yo-Yo Ma, one of the great cellists of all time, a wonderful, wonderful person if you've ever gotten a chance to see him or meet him. And also a very creative and open and receptive human being with such a beautiful heart, and who practiced a lot, practiced. I think you'll enjoy this meaningful and touching, in some ways, 1985 visit of Yo-Yo Ma with Mr. Rogers. Maybe when you were younger you watched Mr. Rogers, or you know of him because of the recent movie. And so perhaps you'll find that of interest. Importantly, it's Yo-Yo Ma playing the cello, and that's music and the creative spirit of music. And you can explore that in lots of ways. You might have, as I do, a cello, and be one who wants to learn to and practices the cello, or there's a guitar over here, or a ukulele. My daughter Millie now has a ukulele, so we're going to learn to play it together. You might know music from, this is vinyl, back in the days when I was, had records, and have a record player now, because you can get one of these record players for very little, with groups like Fleetwood Mac and the extraordinary Stevie Nicks, one of the great songwriters and singers of our time. Here's Jacques Brel. When I was a kid, I was very interested in this guy named Jacques Brel because my mother was interested in a play on Broadway called Jacques Brel's Alive and Well and Living in Paris. Very beautiful and poignant songs. Here he is singing in French, to listen in French. And then, of course, the Go-Go's and just lots of interesting groups with lots of interesting types of music, and to spend a little time either with the music of today that you're interested in, or maybe music from when you were younger, and to sort of get back to it. There's something really interesting when the brain sort of awakens to things that we used to do and enjoy that we haven't really attended to in a long time. So there's music. And of course there's lots of ways of, exploring music in terms of the doing of it without having to be so good at it. Just to engage in it, to hear the sounds, to know that you're participating in the creation of something, and of course listening to it, enjoying the music of others. That's also it is interactive in that form as well. Even Mr. Rogers, when talking with Yo-Yo Ma, talks about just what a gift it is to receive that somebody's playing of music. Also, there's art. So I wanted to share with you, because it's not about being great. It's about just exploring different avenues of our capacity to create and to learn from. So here, years ago, when I was living in Pensacola, my girlfriend at the time, Terry, was clerking with a judge in the Northern District of Florida in Pensacola, wonderful judge, Roger Benson. And so I remember I decided one day, I was always driving back and forth from Gainesville, where I was a student at the University of Florida, and she was in Pensacola, Terry, and so I would drive every single weekend to Pensacola so we could be together. And I would always go over this bridge, if you've ever been to Pensacola, this bridge that takes you sort of into Pensacola proper, and the water was just so beautiful. And so we were talking this week when we were on our way to the Arboretum, a couple of us, about artists and now people who did what we could call forgeries or copying famous works, that now they have people interested in collecting those. Well, I've always thought that it was interesting to learn from great artists. So I don't know if you can see this in the, I think you can, but this is a Monet that I did, and I thought, you know what, it's a copy of a Monet, and I thought, I'm going to look at the painting he did, and I'm going to try to do it myself, and maybe I can learn, like get a sense of what his eye saw, the way he saw things. Now, I'll tell you something that's really wonderful. The one thing about this painting that I thought when I did it that was interesting was there's something about the water that seemed to work. And very shortly after, when I was driving back to Gainesville and I saw the water, I saw it unlike I ever saw it before. It's like I saw the water, the actual water, the Pensacola Bay, probably the way, for at least a split second, that Monet saw water. It wasn't water like a concept. It was what it was. It was very powerful. And that emerged, I'm sure, through this process. More recently, when I say more recently, 26 years ago, an aunt of mine said, well, it's nice that you copy other people's stuff, but why don't you do your own thing? So Pam and I, on our anniversary, on our honeymoon, went to San Francisco, where a picture was taken of us at a restaurant. Pam's a foodie. And so we went to this restaurant called Zuni's. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it. So here, me and Pam sitting at Zuni. Just meaningful to take the time to develop, just maybe to develop a skill, but more to, I don't know, to just create. So perhaps you paint or draw. And part of the reasons why we do with the field guide that is to just engage in that process. And it's like something we did when we were very young, right? And we don't do it so much anymore. You know, this isn't on the website just now, but I'm going to add this. There's a song by Harry Chapin called, I think Flowers Are Red, something like that. It's about a little kid in school coloring, and it's a poignant piece. But I think it's relevant to this week, so I'm going to put it up there. I hope you find it meaningful. So what else do I want to share with you? Also, yeah, when it comes to art, you don't have to buy the materials. You don't have to engage in it yourself. If you don't want to, you can just find, like just wonderful works of art and on the internet and in books, and just spend time, reading about them and learning about them. I encourage you to do that. That too is a form of artistic expression. As it relates to music, I also now, when I was a kid, I played the piano. Maybe you played the piano. I didn't do the stringed instruments. That's much more recent. And when I played the piano as a kid, it was always classical music. It was these classical pieces. And then more recently, I was like, you know what? I want to play the piano again. So we got a piano, and I was like, it's the singers like Neil Diamond and Billy Joel and whomever. Those are the songs that I want to learn to play. So I'm trying to learn to pick up the piano again after many years, and to play pieces. And sometimes I get the book that has the songs the way they would play them, and sometimes I also get it as the Easy Piano Collection, which isn't quite so, it's sort of made a little easier to play. And I like to work with both of those. I like to develop the expertise, which is slow going and can be frustrating, but also satisfying. It also helps me learn patience, because it ain't gonna happen quick. And I don't have that much time, so it's the time that I set aside for this creative endeavor, as well as, sometimes moving a little further along, but ultimately looking forward to this, because this one is more satisfying to play in some ways. What else? My mother collected baseball cards. I didn't. She was a big Brooklyn Dodgers fan, but she shared them with me, and so maybe I can look at her cards and just sort of maybe take up an interest and learn a little bit more about baseball, or these the people that she thought was interesting to collect. This is Sandy Koufax and Duke Snider, for those of you who are baseball fans. As it relates to picking up the cello, which I did when my daughter Rose was born 21 years ago, this is me and Millie playing together the cello when she was little. And so also just to create memories and opportunities to do things in connection with others. What else do I want to share with you? Anything else? Oh yeah, just a couple things. One is when I was a kid in 4th grade, Mrs. Buckite, went to school at Kenwood Elementary here in South Miami. Mrs. Buckite every year would come in with some clay, and we would, do something, and she would, paint it, and then she would come back and give it to us. And so every year I did a turtle. My children, when I was younger, they called me the turtle. I tend to walk slow, and maybe I also am a little bit like guarded. I don't know. Anyway, now my daughters have it. Some of the turtles that I made when I was little. That's a creative process, right? And so not that long ago, when my mom was interested in the art of the Inuit, a very interesting and creative and group of in Alaska, and she got a piece, I was so taken with it that I was like, oh, I want to learn to do that. So here's something, a work in progress with soapstone, a softer stone that you can make some headway with instruments like this. I'm not expecting this to be in a museum one day, but the process of creating it and working on it and learning is really satisfying. I'll share with you that I used to do a lot more painting and sculpting before my children were born, and when they were born, sort of my creative effort seemed to move more in the direction of helping them come along in life and us being together. And I'm sort of noticing now that they've moved on in college and everything that I think some of that creative energy is the reason why I thought about the piano in the last couple of years. The reason why I'm exploring some, in particular the guitar, which I never played before, as I said, and the cello, which I picked up 20 years ago, but slowly but surely. This is a little fish. So it can also be fun. So this week, whether it's the haiku that you'll create a couple of haiku, you'll read about that. You'll be creating 3 haiku in 3 different environments, or maybe playing music or listening to music from a while ago if you'd like, or drawing or painting, or in some way the visual arts. Listening to music, playing music. Did I just say that? See, I would edit this out, but I'm not going to. I hope that in the many other forms that creativity, I guess we could be talking about dance, so that wasn't one that I've come to really immerse in, although I would love to feel comfortable or more comfortable doing that. Maybe the mindful movement with the So Be Mindful is my slow step in that direction. But I hope this week that you reflect on your creative natures, the heart of who you are as a human being, and the ways you are creating all the time. We're creating all the time. And again, as I began, the law is a creative process. But as many of you have noted, and as people note often, the overwhelm, the stress, the busyness of the mind, the challenging and competitive environment can really sort of cause us to retreat a little bit into our shells, and we don't necessarily think we have the time, or if we have the time, turn to that aspect of our nature. In some ways it could be because it's like pushing a rock uphill. We don't think we're so good at it, or what's going to come of it. It's the process. I want to share with you, it's the process. And perhaps you'll find that there's something about, like when I'm doing this, and I'm sort of on my balcony or at the beach carving, I'm focused. When I'm working on, playing a song, and I'm learning it, for the first time or the 50th time, I'm really focused. And also I'm, it can captivate me, and I can really apply myself to it. So the mindfulness elements to this we'll get into when we get back and talk. But for now, have this be a week of, your creative exploration of yourself. You'll find that in closing, this is the closing of this segment, that you have a short video. The only things really to do this readings or materials for this week are a couple of short videos. That's all you've got. You don't have any law review articles to read. You don't have anything like that. One is a short piece, 3 minutes or something, by Dan Harris. I think you'll enjoy it. It'll remind you of the spiral. And when you watch it, think about body sensations in particular. Look at where they bring them out in that video segment. There's also a piece by Ellen Langer. It's a 5-minute piece. Ellen Langer is an absolutely brilliant social psychologist over at Harvard. I think she was maybe like the first tenured female professor at Harvard, period, or in the psychology department. She's done a lot of stuff with mindfulness, but in a different sort of way. She has a very popular book she wrote a long time ago called Mindfulness. She talks about mindfulness, and you'll see that there's creative elements that go through it. But she's not interested in meditating. She makes it very clear. She's interested in mindfulness, and she talks about some of the ways of paying attention and noticing and observing your environment. That is to be mindful, and we've talked about that, and can cultivate mindfulness, but she's not interested in sitting. She says, I'm too busy to sit still. So that's interesting, and I think you'll find what she has to say something you'll learn from. And there's also the video with Yo-Yo Ma and Mr. Rogers, and there's also an animation on the haiku that I think that you'll find interesting, and it sets up, in case you're not really familiar with the haiku form, a little bit about it, along with that short reading, just so that you understand what a haiku consists of, because you'll be crafting 3 of your own haiku. All right, I think I'm going to let this thing go from start to finish. I don't think I'm going to try to edit it, although if I wanted it to really be sharper and more, cogent and not worry about it being too long for you to watch, I would, but I'm not going to. Open to the mystery of how this video unfolds in terms of your experiencing of it. And to the extent that you do, this is not required, just popped into my head, your own creative stuff this week, share it with me, please. I'd be really interested if you sent me a video or a snapshot of the ways that you're perhaps engaging in the creative realm. All right, wishing you all well. Take care.